Hi, I'm the lone journalist for KRAZ TV with another book review. Oh, we just got done there with Churchill. What a piece of work, huh? Here's another piece of work. Heathen. Religion and Race in American History. This is by Kathryn Gim Lum. She is a historian of religion and race in America and the author of Damned Nation, Hell in America from the Revolution to Reconstruction. Her writing has appeared in the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Christian Century. She is Associate Professor of Religious Studies in collaboration with the Center for Comparative Studies in Race and Ethnicity at Stanford University. Well, it just so happens that I have a PhD also in religion, and so I like to read books about comparative and find out histories, and this is an important book because it really bookends all the time. Now, this book is from Harvard University Press. And it's, if an 18th century person told you that the difference between civilization and heathenism is sky high and star high, the words would hardly come as a shock. But that statement was written by an American missionary in 1971. In a sweeping historical narrative, Kathryn Gim Lum shows how the idea of the heathen has been maintained from the colonial era to the present in religious and secular discourses specifically of race. Americans long viewed the world as a realm of suffering heathens whose world is a realm. Americans long viewed the world as a realm of suffering heathens whose land and lives needed their intervention to flourish. The realm heathen fell out of common use by the early 1900s, leading some to imagine that race categories had replaced religious differences. But the ideas underlying the figure of the heathen did not disappear. Americans still treat large swaths of the world as other, due to their assumed need for conversion to American ways. That's a big problem still, isn't it? And it was a problem. Purported heathens have also contributed to the ongoing significance of the concept, promoting solidarity through their opposition to white American Christianity. Gim Lum looks to figures like Chinese American activist Wong Ching-fu and Ihankton Dakota writer Zakala Sa, who proudly claimed the label of heathen for themselves. Race continues to operate as a heathen inheritance in the United States, animating Americans' sense of being a world apart from an undifferentiated mass of needy, suffering peoples. Heathen thus reveals a key source of American exceptionalism and a prism through which Americans have defined themselves as a progressive and humanitarian nation, even as supposed heathens have drawn on the same to counter this national myth. Wow, that's a mouthful. And it really does chart how expansionism and exploitation really happened. And the early people, Christian quote, and big churches all had this idea that these people didn't deserve the land, they didn't know what they were doing, that unless they came to Jesus Christ alone, they would never have. And, well, here's another thing, though. The early Protestant works always regarded Catholics, too, also as heathenistic practices, even though they bought the idea of and started it all in the Vatican. They adored idols and and figure worship like that, and that really set them apart. So in this book, there's very little Catholic intervention, because when they came to the New World, the Spanish were already here doing their little butcher jobs and stuff. And so these, pious-minded people thought that they should intervene. And like Hawaii, they took that over and said, look at all this great country. They're not doing anything with it. They're not exploiting it. We need cattle over here. And it was a mess. And a big thing is when they finally did take in those people, or who they decided, like Indian schools, they had their hair cut. They weren't blanket Indians anymore. They wore suits, and they learned white man skills and white people skills, and did not eat the other foods of their country anymore. And a lot of people lost identity like that. Now, in the end, some of these Christianized heathens took up the mantle of, now that I'm this way, I'm going to teach my own people and leave us out of it, and we'll determine our own Christianity on our own terms. But in the interim, China got swept up by that. There was a lot of Chinese missions, and it was mostly Protestant style Christianity, and they riled against everybody, like I said, including the Catholics. So what can you say? But it was a turbulent time in all of that, and a lot of things disappeared as far as lands and cultures and stuff because of this, I don't know, do we call it proselytizing? Anyway, it's a real story, and it involves this. It says in America here, but it really talks about their worldwide conquest and exploits that the movements and fundamentalists and evangelists did do in those days. So, but it mostly came from America, but it was fueled by English, of course, Protestant endeavors. And then, of course, the church was the Church of England after Henry. And then the other movements from Holland and all of that took up. And then there were Calvinists and other religions that were more Protestant and not, I don't know. They were still English, but they didn't have the flavor of the church like a Church of England. But anyways, they probably had all their own missionaries anyway. So it just goes on and on about how they brought the masses to Christ, and in the end, a lot of people didn't feel like that was a good way to go. But anyway, it is a true story, and it's a story that really helped me in learning the histories of how religion spread after the America became great, and that was a part where we expanded because God gave us that right. Anyway, that's the story, and you can read it for yourself. It's a long book to read because it's a seminal work. Tell you, she's done her homework, and a lot of the facts are there, but some of it is difficult to read at the time. But it's a book that is important, and I think you'll enjoy it as much as I did. I had to get into it, but once I did, it really opened my eyes to a lot of things about how America and the way what we call racism in the book. I think I was going to read one little thing out of here, maybe. And it says, the third world varies from the purely geographic. So they had a meeting. It's Etwa, which is the it was a people that were already into the movement challenged it from the third. So they changed over from heathen and all that to the third world, and the phrase third world is a theologic neologism for God's own people. While the heathen had been understood by white Christians to be excluded from God's peoplehood, Paris insisted that third world was special to God. It stands for the starving sons of Jacob of all places, of all times, who go in search of bread to a rich country only to become its slaves. It says many of EATWAT's members were Catholic. In their openness to dialogue, they referenced Vatican II's revision of the historical Catholic stance towards other religions. So they finally got together. It says the Catholic members turned the step into a leap, or at least they stressed the need to do so. On the land, they flipped the script on Westerners who believed their heathens implied wilderness and wildness. But for the best, since the wasteful lifestyle of the affluent and capitalist countries was leading to an escalation of despoilation of nature and depletion of natural resources, dangerously threatened the future of nature and human life itself. So I'd say they got a little overzealous. But anyways, read the book yourself and make your decisions. I am still out a little bit on it, but you just have to take it at face value. Thanks for watching KRAZ TV, and the book is Heathen, Religion and Race in American History by Kathryn Gim Lum. Thank you.